All right, we're live. Welcome, everybody. Welcome back to another Word Balloon Live, the comic book conversation show. This is John Suntress. Look who's here, everybody. I'm so happy to welcome back one of my good friends in the newsarama world. And I miss her when we'd hang out at conventions, me, her, and Matt Brady, and laugh and just be like, oh, all right, how many panels? Good Lord, I can't even think right now. Vaneta Rogers, everybody.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. Real good. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I'm glad that your daytime job is essential and that you're doing okay in Ohio and everything.
Yeah, my husband's also in an essential job, and we joke around that.
Cool.
I don't know. Well, everybody else is going, canoeing and barbecuing during the day. It feels so good that we're essential, but
that's true. You guys are outdoors people too. Yeah, that's true.
It's a good time to know you have a job.
I totally understand.
Yeah,
absolutely. No, that's great. But we were just talking off the air and everything, and I want to know because likely you're talking to retailers and just can get kind of a firsthand experience talking to them. I've talked to a couple. I've talked to Mark Hammond over at IAC Comics in New York, and I've talked to Pat Brower of Challengers here in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, what's the sense? I mean, I know each store has its own kind of take on what's going on, but yeah, tell me some of the stories you're hearing.
Well, I know people in the retailing world were not thrilled with some of the changes that DC made, just because DC was utilizing two retailers to become distributors. So all of a sudden that supply line was through a competitor. I mean, not that all of them are necessarily direct competitors, but they are to some, it's the same level. You got the retailer then now is responsible for the next person down, and they were really uncomfortable with that. And I think also a lot of them were concerned about the publishers wanting to move to digital and what moves Comixology might make. And so there was some fear, but the direct market, I think people feel like it could go at any time. So because it feels like an older supply chain to get, something that was set up for a certain audience at a certain time. And it's a little different now. And with digital becoming bigger, I think there's just a lot of concern about, is that supply chain going to stay the same for customers? And so for it to be down for a month and a half or 2 months, for the most part, Diamond anyway, I think it was alarming for everybody. And I think retailers were just kind of shocked by it all. But at the same time, we're all shocked and freaking out over all this. So you go day by day. And I think that's what they were trying to do. At first they were just doing curbside, they were mailing comics, they were doing what they could. And so I think they're just going to try and stay up and running the best they can.
No, I hear you. And Heidi and I were talking earlier, and it's not only selling books, but really is the community they build and having the book clubs and some of the other innovative things they do to, hang on to their customers and really make it more of a club than it is just a store.
That's the one thing that comic stores have, that let's say you want a graphic novel and you go into Barnes and Nobles and you buy it, right? You could also go into a comic store and buy it. What's the difference? Well, the difference is, like you said, the community. So if you're, particularly during The Walking Dead, I know stores that every Sunday night, everybody would get together and watch the show together. So what is this going to do to that advantage that comic stores have? It remains to be seen, but sure, there's a concern there. And I think that our community it is small. It really is small. It's a strong community, but the comic book community is small. And I think there's some loyalty there. But in an era where we were really, I think with the movies and everything, you were kind of hoping for growth in the comic book stores. I don't know if that growth now is going to be able to happen, at least while all of this is going on. It's maybe even the opposite. They're going to lose some people. I mean, not everybody's going to be completely loyal.
No, I hear you. But also too, and I mean, I know right now services like Zoom are being very generous in terms of, offering a free service for group chats and things like that.
Right.
And maybe that is something that stores, I mean, really it's, $20 a month or whatever to be able to do maybe a virtual book club as opposed to going to the store. But it was so weird, and it's something I never even thought of. But again, having this conversation with Heidi this afternoon, and I want to know your thoughts on it. Even just the idea of browsing in a shop is going to be a very different experience. You won't be able to pick up the comics and thumb through them. I mean, it's so weird. And think about the way the stores are set up, and just bookstores in general to be able to browse. I mean, what's that going to do to the store experience?
Well, and what's crazy is that, I remember when Amazon first came around, it was a book supplier, right? And I remember retailers even then saying that they were being undercut by Amazon, the book retailer, right? So now Comixology is part of Amazon, so they've got that advantage too. And yeah, if you can thumb through it on the internet on Amazon, with a lot of them, look through this book. And I mean, it stinks to think that society is going to move further away from each other, particularly in the comic book community, because I feel like we're already kind of introvert naturally people. We want to talk about comic books, but maybe, and you think about like conventions, like the nerds like to get together. I guess that's what I'm saying. Like, we like to get together, and to think that we're going to be driven even more on like this, it's just kind of sad, because there's something really special about getting together with a bunch of other people who enjoy the same thing.
Absolutely. And I mean, eventually, and God only knows when, but when a vaccine is available beyond just testing, but really when they really have something that you can take a shot at, either, not be afraid anymore, or whatever degree the vaccine will be. I mean, it's going to be a different world. And I mean, it is interesting now that digital might be more of a factor. I mean, digital's been around for, about 11 years, and it was much like cable and, traditional broadcasting TV until recently. They could exist side by side. And I think that was the case with digital and reading physical comics. But now I don't know. What do you think of, what's happened in the last couple of weeks too, or rather inadvertently, Ed Brubaker and Marcos Martin, a new Panel Syndicate book coming at a great time when nothing is really coming out from Diamond, and all of a sudden we've got that Friday comic, which is terrific, and also Alex DeCampi, Bad Karma, just announced this week as well. So I think those are kind of interesting initiatives.
I think I've talked to a few creators, and I think people are, I don't know, I don't want to say who's mind working on ways to get things out and be creative outside of maybe the network that's currently set up. And I think we're going to see more and more of that. Like people, we used to talk about, web comics. I mean, not there's straight web comics, but, I just wonder if there isn't another kind of frontier that's going to be developed out of this, and somewhat out of necessity, but also out of the fact that people are sitting around at home and things, a lot of creative things, or creators that we want to see stuff come from. They're going to have the time to do it, or at least they're forced to be in an office or forced to be in their house for a while,
Yeah.
There's right now, or very few.
No, I understand. Also, it's interesting. Some of the publishers are getting wise too. Like during this whole pencils down period for a lot of publishers, I was talking to Joe Pruitt at Aftershock, and he kind of came up with some short story ideas to pitch to creators and say, hey, if you need something to slip in between, and, they're telling you not to generate any pages right now, you can work with, us for a month or whatever, and get a few pages from us and everything. So it is interesting. And I think all ends of the community, creator and publisher, are going to be doing this. And also, again, I really applaud Steve Geppi for really being there during other tough times in the comic industry. And that he was always reliable. And you and I both have been to our share of Diamond retailer summits and everything, and seen the face-to-face kind of interactions that Diamond has with retailers, and taking their concerns and complaints on a face-to-face level and stuff. But by the same token, I don't know, again, this necessity might shake up the industry in good ways, and we are going to have different distribution avenues. to get books.
Right. There's a couple of things that I've heard. Don't get me like, competition's good, and we all have kind of felt for a while, but it's weird that we only have one distributor, right? That this industry has one distributor. Everybody knows who it is, and that's who you kind of look at their previews, and it just seemed weird. So totally understand people maybe being excited about multiple distributors, and I've talked to people who do like the idea, but it is a very small industry. And like you said, Steve and Diamond have been there for retailers. They've developed their whole, business around retailers. They've set things up for retailers. If comics are damaged, they're always, I don't want to say always, I don't want to speak for every retailer, but they're usually really good about, taking responsibility and that kind of thing. And I think it's kind of sad that, and I think a lot of retailers felt this way and it was hard to understand why retailers would be so supportive of Diamond. I mean, it's just one distributor, but I think that they saw that right when Diamond was knocked down, because they were knocked down, that maybe wasn't the time to jump over them and take away their business. You know what I mean? So, I think a lot of retailers respected Diamond for what they've done for the industry so far, enough to not want to just take advantage of them when they're down. Maybe, eventually we can come up with this multi-distributors thing, but it felt like the wrong time, maybe. I mean, I understand why it happened when it did. It was kind of out of necessity that people started looking at other distributors. But I think to a lot of retailers, it felt like right when the guy gets knocked down, you kick him, that kind of thing. Maybe this isn't the right time to do it. So I don't know. We'll see. Diamond's coming back, so maybe it wasn't as bad as people feared.
That is encouraging that they are able to come back, and really, when it all comes down, it'll be 8 weeks, 10 weeks, something like that. It is also interesting how DC and Marvel are reacting to it as well. DC making the deals with, and I always use the store names. I know they've got different names as distributors, but Midtown Comics and DCBS. And I'll be talking to Christina from DCBS. She's an old friend. But I can also appreciate some retailers being, like you were saying, they are kind of our competition. And I don't know if I feel comfortable giving my sales data to a competitor. And I can appreciate that. But then on the other hand, Marvel, moving ahead and making the announcement this week that a lot of their lower selling books are going to be digital only. I was shocked. I was talking to Matt Rosenberg about Hawkeye. I love it. I think it's a great series. And it surprised me. He's the one who told me. He's like, yeah, they're going to come out digital. I'm like, well, eventually paper. And he's like, no, not really. There'll be a trade, of course. But isn't that interesting, too? And again, they're kind of testing the waters right now with digital.
Yeah. And, I remember when digital was first being talked about. I think you and I were hanging out at conventions and things when Comixology was just a baby. Like It was, what's that guy's name? Dave, I can't remember his name.
Steinberger, yeah.
Yeah. It was like his MBA project or something, was to come up with a way to distribute comic books digitally. And he came up with it, and they kind of put it together, and it was exciting, but at the same time it was like, oh, print's going to die. It's going to die,
Right.
And it didn't. And has survived a long time since then, because that was maybe 2008 or 9.
Yeah, like 9, 10, around there.
Period. And so it's lasted a long time. And then we kind of got to the point where, like, well, they will coexist. And they have coexisted for a while. And, you've got some customers who want the digital, and you have, for print customers, they have the print. For people who like collections, they can get it at a bookstore or on Amazon, or they can get it from the comic book store. Wow, I don't know. This thing really is a shock to the system. It's a shock to the system. And I think Marvel probably realized, the overhead, or that's probably not the right word, but
I think it is actually. Yeah, the cost.
The cost to put Hawkeye out on the street, and, the
money coming in, yeah.
Is that worth what comes in? And can they set up a model where the stuff that's going on the street, because I think you don't want to just stop that cash from coming in from that customer. You're going to tick off customers who like their print comics, but you can maybe change the model that you were operating under before, that maybe there are some comic books that can be, the serial part of it can come out digitally and the print part of it can come out later.
I hear you. No, I agree.
I think
Mr. Biggins has an interesting question, and I'll see what you say, and I think I might have an answer as well. Will the June solicits be shipped to consumers by the mail order services such as DCBS, or will some of these books be canceled by pencils down? As I understand it right now, like DCBS, well, DCBS obviously handles more than just distributing DC, as they're doing with their Luna imprint or whatever they're calling their distributing thing. But I do know that a lot of the publishers have adjusted their release dates because of Diamond shutdown and pencils down. And I mean, Aftershock is one of my main sponsors, and a lot of their books that were planned for April and May are getting kicked to June and July and stuff. So, you know, in fact, the two books that they have coming out at the end of May are books that were solicited for the first week of April. So yeah, I mean, I think everyone's adjusting as far as releasing things, and you're just going to have to contact if Mr. Biggins has DCBS as a service and see what they tell you specifically.
Yeah, I don't know the details of that, but I do know that everything got delayed, everything got pushed back because of, you know, most stores were closed, and even even I think even some of the releases to stores that were open got shut down because the only way to distribute them was gone.
Right. And also talking to Ed, I talked to Brubaker, and Pulp was supposed to come out. I forget when, but it got kicked back a little bit. And then also the latest Criminal collection will be moved to August, and I think that was going to be a July release. So no, it's affecting everybody. And again, even
great if we could get everything in the mail. I mean, because like you're talking about the experience of going into a comic book store, it isn't gonna be the way that it was. It just isn't. I mean, I guess you can't stand around 6 feet apart with masks on and still talk about the latest news, I guess, to some extent. But it's gonna be very, very different. I mean, when I have gone in and usually when you're standing in front of the new releases on new release day, there's tons of people around. There's other people around you. So it's just going to have to be very different. So I wish there was a way that you could support your local comic book store and maybe get them in the mail or get them to your door. I've switched my groceries to like Click List and Amazon at the door, and so many things people are switching to that. And so I think, like I say, this is kind of just a huge shock to the system, and anything that was iffy before it's hard to see how it's going to survive going forward. So,
I agree. And yeah, man, I mean, especially since I moved back to the city proper, Chicago, a lot of the stores that I go to are in what were heavy traffic areas. And yeah, man, new Comic Wednesday, no, you'd easily have 30 people in the store, and that's probably not going to happen anymore. And like again, just that experience of browsing. And it's funny because I didn't even think, and you're right, that this will give Comixology and Amazon an edge where you'll be able to see the interiors of a book as opposed to going up to the shelf and flipping through. So that's going to be interesting. But I was even saying to Heidi, I'm like, maybe the cover artist now more than ever is going to be important to selling the book, because that literally might be the only thing we see as far as that goes. Oh, interesting. I wanted Kyle. I've been looking for you, man. I was actually hoping that you might join this discussion, but I'm glad you make this point. I don't think people realize how close final offer or final order closure is to production wraps on a book to when the printing presses roll. Very tight window, which has been seen as a creative strength before this. Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. So, and
what is it? Final order cutoff is like 3 weeks, I think, before.
That sounds right. Yeah, that sounds right.
Before the book's on the shelf, I think it's 3 weeks, and they gotta start getting it to the printer, and right after that, sure, because then they have to mail them. They UPS them to everybody. I think they ship them out on Fridays, and they arrive on Mondays or on Tuesday, Wednesdays, usually Tuesdays, I think, and some stores Wednesday mornings. So if it's Friday, yeah, you go back about a week and a half, or 2 weeks from that, and that's final order cutoff.
And Sean DeMumbrum, Amazon has the distribution capability to handle comics, but collector condition is a factor. Of course it is. Absolutely, man. That's where you buy the statues, or you discover, oh my, it's that discoverability that was always great walking into a store. And I don't know. I don't know how that's going to be handled moving forward. I'm thrilled at stores, and I don't know how many stores you're talking to, Vanita, that they've been, using video. And I mean, literally have been like selling, kind of auctioning off, okay, here's a variant or whatever, here's a statue. And that's a great way for them to move merchandise. And again, maybe that becomes a new thing in terms of, hey, this is what's out this week, or you guys should really check this out one by one.
Yeah. They're hawking stuff. I mean, you almost have to be a YouTube personality or whatever, or Facebook Live or whatever.
Yeah.
To be really good at that kind of thing. But the collectability factor, I had not really considered that, because I know some of the biggest selling comic books are because you're collecting nowadays, is because you're collecting them. So there's just no way the publishers can go fully digital. So not if they're going to expect the kind of numbers that they've had, you know what I mean? Like, that's when they really start making the money, is when they're selling the 50, 80, 100, 300,000. If it's got Obama on the cover, if there's 700,000, however many that one sold, or the punch thing that's coming up, with Batman was like 250,000 copies or whatever. So, that's not going to happen if it's digital. Absolutely.
No. And that's why
surviving on variant covers a lot lately.
Yep.
Too.
100%.
That doesn't work on digital. So the whole model of the business would go out the window without the comic book store. And I don't know that anybody's ready to do that.
Yeah, I don't know. It is going to be interesting. Now, Mr. Biggins says that he had heard digital sales were flat up to pre-COVID. Conversely, comics were having a great year in the first couple months.
And I've heard that also the digital comics was not only flat, but it wasn't a huge portion of the comic book sales. So yeah, they'd be walking away from the majority. Publishers would be walking away from the majority of their sales. They won't walk. I don't think they'll walk away from it, but I think the comic book stores that are going to survive, and this is true anyway, the comic book stores that are going to survive are the ones that are innovative and can adjust to the market. That's true anyway.
Right.
It's just that this one it's sudden. It's a shock. You got to move. You got to move soon. You got to do something about it and respond to your customers. Make sure you're communicating with them. I just think it's going to be a little more work. I think it'll be a lot more work for all businesses right now.
100%. But you're right. It's that business margin, that thin business margin that I think comic shops have, that make it a lot harder. And like you said, you need to adapt and fast.
Well,
really
and you think right now, okay, so they're ordering these new books from Diamond that just got announced, right? And they've got to get their orders in. And I think Diamond said, orders are good right now, but that's only the orders for the stores. Are the people going to be, how are the customers going to respond? I guess is where I'm going after this, right? Are customers going to come out in droves? I hope so. Or are they going to say, you know what? It's unsure times. If I'm going to cut anything, it's all those comic books that I spend money on, or it's kind of it's a very unsure time. It's an unsure time everywhere, but it's a particularly unsure time in the comic book business, I feel like.
Absolutely. Have you had a chance to talk to many creators during the virus hit and gotten a feedback?
Just a few. I talk, mainly to DC because I cover kind of the DC beat for newsarama. And DC has their regular writers. They have them working. People are getting ahead. They've switched some things around where people who they have those double ship books, and they were going to do one artist for the the early one in the month and another artist for the late. Well, then they've decided, no, let's try to do it all with the same artist. We got a little time, we can get ahead. So some of those things have happened where one artist is doing the entire storyline, which is ideal. And then there's some, Scott Snyder, just they're adding more tie-ins to his event that's coming up because they have the time, and they're recruiting more creators to be part of it because they have the time. So the lead time on comics, a lot of writers and artists cut it really, really close. And I think that this has just given everybody a little time to be ahead. Not your buddy Bendis. He's always way ahead, right?
This is true. Very ahead.
Is way ahead.
Oh, yeah. No, you're right about that.
I haven't talked to him. Have you talked to him?
Oh, yeah.
He's doing okay on Facebook.
Yeah, he's doing all right. He had this, man, the guy has the worst health luck, and thankfully it's something that is being handled, but he got some sort of eye infection that like literally only like soldiers that deal with sandstorms normally get.
Wow.
And he's, they gave him the proper medication and treatment, but he's back in an eye patch again. Because his kid, his youngest boy, scratched his cornea years ago, accidentally as like a toddler and stuff.
Yeah.
But yes, so now he's back in the eye patch. But other than that, no, and he's got 4 kids, so he's homeschooling. He's as all the parents are. Are any of your kids still?
The one thing that has changed for me, because like we said, we are essential workers, but what has changed is my college-age daughter. She came home, which is kind of nice, and kind of change things around the house.
Well, yeah. What year in college is she?
She's in her last year. She's starting she actually is going to graduate in December, which, wow, we were excited. She's going to get out there in the workforce, but now it's like, ooh, what's the workforce going to be like in December?
Yeah, totally.
And she had a couple of possible summer internships, and those went away. And so she just took her last final last night, and then now has to figure out, she's going one more semester, but they have not said whether that one semester is online or.
Yeah. Where's your school?
When I said before, things are so unsure. It's not just jobs. It's like everything is so up in the air.
100%. Yeah. So what school she at?
Comic book stores who are having to, figure it. Like I said, we're all going kind of one day at a time and doing the best we can. I was talking to Brad Meltz the other day. He has a new book out, which I'm reading, which is very good.
It is very good.
But he and I both were talking about how historically you look at all these really difficult things, and this will go down as one of those, obviously, in history. And you wonder how people lived through it. How did they get through it? How did they, they must have been so strong and everything. But now that we're in the midst of something, not to say this is quite World War level or anything, but you still have to, it's worldwide. You still, you don't really have a choice. And you just get by day. And I think that's true, of everything.
I agree. And it's the only thing I can relate to in our lifetime was the energy crisis, and we'd have the gas lines.
Sure.
That's the closest inconvenience I can think of from a modern standpoint, and something that at least nationally was a problem. And like you said, this is obviously global. But yeah, I think you're right. I mean, and that's what I was going to say is we really had no choice. It was just you adapted and you endured, and you just kind of went about your life the best way that you could.
How did you do that? I remember my mother-in-law, when we would ask her about the Great Depression, she said, it's just the way it was. You just did what you had to do each day, and I think that's where we are. And I think for the comic book industry, all businesses, most businesses, I should say, are dealing with some trauma or some shock. But, the comic book business, it's just so small. And so, I don't know, it's really reliant on a certain structure that has just been thrown a tough thing to get over. It's a storm that's going to be really hard to weather. Like everything that's great about a comic book store, so many of those things are going to be tough to survive. Even the gaming stuff that a lot of the stores do, the Magic games and the events. It just, I don't know.
Yeah.
Comic book conventions. John, what are we going to do?
I know. Seriously, V, I went to C2E2, of course, in our backyard. And again, Heidi and I were talking about it. It's like, that's the last event and likely probably will be for the rest of the year.
Oh, yeah.
And we'll see if it might be the first one back. Franco and I were talking about that.
That's true.
That maybe by next spring, maybe things will normalize a bit. But yeah, no, it's all the gradual steps. Who's willing to get on a plane to go to an out-of-town convention? Not only that, who's even willing to drive to a tri-state convention and worry about, a crowd of more than 100 people? No, it's that's a really big, again, blow to the community, where we all do kind of get together and, get to enjoy the shared experience and everything. And it's on hold. I don't think forever. I do think that, again, I do think once things medically.
There's an opportunity, John. Maybe you and I need to put it together for a virtual comics convention.
Well, actually, I participated in one a couple of weeks ago, Mainframe Comic Con, which I thought was a nice idea, and they did virtual panels, and I brought them Rucka and Fraction for an hour each and everything.
Awesome.
And yeah, it was fun. It was fun, and I think Reed is doing something. What's that?
I said it's not the same. You could do
it's not.
You could do cosplay for like an hour, and different people's, could be on and show off their costume and how they made it. And
yeah. No, that would be fun, absolutely. But no, you're right. Of course, it isn't the same. And again, I mean, honestly, as you know, I mean, with Word Balloon, that's essentially what I was trying to do, is kind of recreate that good, intimate comic panel and be able to have a good conversation with, what normally would happen on stage and stuff, and that we do it online, either audio and now video too.
Better, much better.
You like it?
Oh, I love your show. I always have.
Sweetie, thank you. Well, you're a nice lady.
Before you came on, I was telling you the different people that I like what you're doing now too. I like the video.
Thanks, buddy. Well, again, adapt or die. I mean, everything is fine on the audio side, but I'm just like, I've been meaning to do more video. This was a good opportunity to do it. And I've got enough YouTube friends like Rob Burnett that do it all the time. And, so it was an easy thing to learn and make a part of the show. And I guarantee you, even once we get out of this and stuff, I'll continue to do some video and stuff. Now, Mr. Biggins wants to know about your DC's new distribution plan. I guess from DC's standpoint, but I want to even expand it further. And I meant to ask, because now that Dan DiDio, who left before the virus and everything, at
the right time. No, I don't.
No, but also, yes, I'm sure he'd rather have a job. But that said, I'm sure it's a relief. But isn't it interesting that, and forgive me, Mr. Biggins, because we did talk a bit about DC's new distribution plan. I don't know what Vaneta wants to add to that, but I will also ask, the face of DC now being Jim Lee. Jim's a much quieter presence than Dan's kind of, we're all in this, the DC Nation mentality that he really fostered, and I think did a great job of really gathering and stuff. So how has it been talking to, have you talked to the brass at DC?
I have not talked to the brass. I've heard secondhand from creators that they seem to be, the editorial seems to be very supportive of them. And I've heard from retailers that the people in editorial that they know are very supportive of them as well.
Good.
There was a general, that feeling, I guess is the right word, that the decision to go around Diamond and figure out another way to distribute was a directive from above. I don't know if that's true. That was retailers talking, and they thought they had heard so-and-so heard, and so I don't know about that. I look at it from DC's point of view, and at the time they first started looking into this, they were just trying to get stuff to the stores, right? And I completely understand that. And their distribution had broken down, and so we got to get some other way to do it. And they have these good relationships with these retailers who can maybe make it happen. And of course, those retailers are like, sure, we want to help the comic book industry. It's a great thing. But at the same time, from the retailer's point of view, it felt like the wrong time to do it, because not only was, like I said earlier, it felt like they were kind of kicking Diamond when they're down, but most of the stores are shut down, right? So they would rather, I think they wanted DC to just say, okay, well, we're with you stores while you're shut down. We're not going to publish any comic books. But, you know, they're a business too. So it was a really tough situation. And I don't know that it was the right decision to start doing that. But I don't know that it was wrong. I guess we'll see. You know, when he says to comment, I'm not sure. I don't know if I have an opinion. I know what I've heard. And I'm one of those people, and that's maybe why I interview other people for their opinions as not insert my own, is because I'm one of those people who can see people's side of the story. You know, I can see DC's side of this, but at the same time, I can see why retailers would say, you know, this is not, in the midst of this huge crisis, this is not the time to be screwing with the system. You know, this is not the time to go around Diamond while they're down, and this is not the time to favor two of our competitors. And so I can understand that. But I also think in this situation, I just said, you have to be innovative. You have to, you know, you've got to find a new way to make this work. And I think that's what DC was doing. So, yeah, I don't
I think
I don't know if I can even take a side. Even if I wanted to, I totally feel for the retailers who did not like that happening. I also feel for the retailers who some retailers, you know, they can get stuff to their customers. I mean, most of America was in lockdown. I even heard from a comic book store in Alaska. Like, I tried to do even Alaska's comic book stores were shut down, you know. And so, I mean, this affected everybody, but there were places that were able to keep doing mail order. There were places that were able to do other things. So I can understand, well, if we can get some of our product out there, maybe there's a way to do it. I can understand wanting to do that.
Sean Denumbra says something here. You mentioned Facebook Live as a way to sell comics. What do you think of the emergence of live shows like Comic Book Shopping Network as an impact on sales? Well, again, it's getting people's hands-on comics in the ways that we can right now, and using the communication portals that we have. So yeah, I think it's good.
Yeah, I think it's good too. And you know, something that I would point out to the retailers that I talked to was, well, you know, not everybody has a comic book store. Like, there's so much of America that doesn't have a comic book store. So the fact that this might force the industry to be more innovative in doing internet sales or doing other ways to get comic books into people's hands, that's a good thing. I mean, I think that's a good thing for the industry. It's a scary time for the industry, but as long as people can be innovative and the people who sell comic books can be innovative, like, hopefully we can come out of this with a big old silver lining to this cloud.
I agree. A. Johnson says Three Jokers should help. And it's funny because actually that's of course referencing our friend, Jeff Johns. And I don't know if you've had a chance to talk to Jeff recently. I actually did a couple weeks ago. And I did see the announcement this week regarding Three Jokers specifically that, you know, an announcement is coming as far as the scheduling for it.
Yeah.
But also I was talking to Jeff about Stargirl, and I don't know if you've had a chance to see any episodes. He was kind. He sent me 5 episodes to watch.
Yeah.
And it blew my mind. And I got to tell you, I think it's going to be a great show, and I think it's going to register with people in a great way because it's such an upbeat, positive show, kind of in that same way that Smallville needed to be right after 9/11. And I think people will respond to it that way.
I saw the first 2 episodes, and yeah, that was about, I don't know, a month and a half ago, and I agree. It's very upbeat.
Oh, she's frozen, folks. I hope we get her back.
Are you there?
Yeah. You froze for a second, so start again. And what do you think of Stargirl?
Yeah, a couple of the episodes, and I agree. It was better than I expected. It was a lot of fun. And I did not even think of that until you just said, but yeah, you're right that it's probably exactly what we need. I know that I started binging various, I don't know, I got British cop shows, like right before this all started going down, so like Broadchurch and Happy Valley and stuff. I don't know. And just recently started Interland on Netflix. My point is that I stopped because they get dark. I mean, some of these shows get pretty dark, and I realized I just is not the time for me to be watching that. You know what I mean? So we've switched. Our whole family is kind of rewatching The Office and just cracking up because we need that, you know? So I completely didn't think of that, but you're right. I think Stargirl would be a fantastic thing to just binge in, to kind of coming out of this and get a smile on your face and just, I don't know, enjoy superheroes again, you know, just I mean, Courtney's that way though.
Right. And that's the great thing. She really is. It's, and also I gotta say, I like it because it's absolutely a strong women's show in the best way. And it just happens to be a strong women's show. It's not
pandering, you know, like, oh,
exactly.
We just rewatched Endgame, right? And you love that moment when all the women come together, right? But all of us, my whole family, you know, we went, the girls, and somebody went, a little forced, but that's okay, you know. It was a little forced, but it was really cool. It was a great moment. Yeah, Stargirl's not forced at all. It's just very natural, and what I saw, the first two episodes, very loyal to the comic book.
Oh God, yes. The JSA's DNA is all over that show. That's what I was saying to Jeff. Yeah.
Yeah, and her relationship with her family and her relationship with her stepdad. It's really cool.
And Luke Wilson, last guy in the world, you'd think would be cast as Pat Duggan, and he's
great.
He's great. He's fantastic. Yeah. No, it's really it's a great Valentine to the JSA, and the JSA's backstory will play out.
People are wondering how much Jeff paid us to say all this.
I know.
Good show.
I swear, and really, I was so relieved because I could think of a handful of other creators that we're friends with. That, hey, what do you think of X? And it's like, yeah, it's kind of good, I guess, you know. And it's like, and I swear, when I talk to Jeff, I'm like, Jeff, I swear it's fantastic. I don't have to lie to you. This is really, really great. And he's like, oh, I'm glad you like it. I'm like, no, really, man. Like you know, again, and it's because he understands this stuff. That's why Rebirth was so important. And it was like, oh, that's what DC is. Of course it is. And it was so weird during that New 52 period that they really almost felt embarrassed by the brand, the way they built the brand for decades, for 70 years. And they're like, no, we're this. And then all of a sudden we weren't this anymore. And it's not about family. And we're all outlaws. We're all renegades. And it's like, that's not DC, man. I go, you know, and the JSA is the classic example of that. And that's why I think Stargirl is going to work is no, it's about family. If you're going to introduce a new version of the character, make it part of the legacy. Let them honor the original heroes. I know you feel the same way.
I feel the same way. I didn't know we were going to get into what was wrong with the New 52, but
well, again, because I think
that's the main thing that was wrong with the New 52. That is the main thing, was because DC, the one thing that DC has more is that legacy. And yeah, I'm with you. You know, both of us love the Justice Society, and we loved the way that, in particular, Jeff did this really well. Is he took there were the older characters, but by the time he left JSA, it was a very young team. It was a super young, exciting new hero team, right? Or fairly new within the last, you know, at that time, the 20 years before that. So fairly new heroes. So it wasn't like it was old. You know, when they threw that out, they threw out the baby with the bathwater, I guess is the point. You know, I could saying, okay, well, we need Bruce Wayne and Clark Kent to be younger. But then they said, therefore, we're not going to have any of these legacy characters. You didn't have to, you know, X didn't mean you had to do Y.
I agree. No, absolutely. Now, Mr. Biggins, another good question here, because I did want to ask about this. Have you seen the Allegiance comics in Essential Walmart? The art looks good. Well, yeah, you got people like it's Brightweiser. Yeah. Well, and yeah, I know. Well, you know, it's weird. I have a Walmart pharmacy grocery store. It's not a full-blown Walmart.
A Walmart pharmacy grocery store?
Yeah, it's not the full-blown giant Walmart where you can get housewares and furniture and things like that. Okay. But it's mostly a grocery store and pharmacy. Mm-hmm. And they do sell the DC, books there and everything, the exclusive Walmart books. But now, Allegiance Comics, among them Red Rooster, I know Mitch Breitweiser's book, they kind of made a deal with Walmart to have end caps of the Allegiance comic books. And I don't know if you've heard about that deal and what you think of that initiative.
No, I don't know. I'm not one to speak about it, and I haven't seen them. The art looks good. That's good.
Well, yeah, Mitch Breitweiser. Mitch is a beautiful artist, and I think Red Rooster is a very beautiful book. I think I'll tell you, Mr. Biggins, what I know, and that is just in general, any product to get into Walmart, they're paying for it to get there, and it isn't cheap. So they're laying a big investment, Allegiance Comics, to make this initiative. I talked about it with Heidi, and people will know because I'll likely put my interview with Heidi along with the interview with Vaneta on the same episode. But what I found interesting was that I don't know how well the DC books are doing at Walmart. Do you have any indication of how that whole project is doing from a sales standpoint?
I think they're doing well because they seem to be wanting, they seem to be liking them. So
okay, because and again, Allegiance being new characters and not recognizable characters, if they're selling monthly comics there, I honestly don't know. I don't know how they'll do. Yeah. Because again, the DC product is a nice big, 100-page $5 comic. That's a decent value and stuff. And so I don't know. It's going to be very interesting. And it reminds me, I don't know if you knew about this back in the day, but in the 80s, First Comics had a weird distribution deal with greeting card chains. And Norton and I would talk about this. I saw First Comics at a greeting card company, and Norton back in Nashville was seeing the same stuff. And it's like, well, how did that happen? So,
well, that's what I say about being innovative. And I think the Walmart distribution is great. And, the more comics we can get into people's hands, the better. And so I think being innovative, heck, if they go back to greeting card companies,
well, and and again, it's maybe I don't know. The question is, will the Allegiance product be graphic novel collections or will they be single issues? It's going to be interesting, and that's what they sell. They've got the venue. Now the question is, what is the product and what, however they were able to do it. I wish them luck. That's fine. Walmart is where America shops. I think there's nothing wrong with getting comics there and stuff. We'll see. The big advantage that DC obviously has is it's Batman, it's Superman, it's Wonder Woman.
Right. So kids want to pick it up.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you had a chance to watch any of Harley Quinn, the new animated show?
I thought you were going to ask me Star Trek stuff. Last time we talked, you were asking me Star Trek, and I thought, I can't keep up with him.
Don't worry, buddy. I won't do that to you. Do you watch the new? Did you watch the new Star Trek? You opened the door.
No.
Don't worry, buddy. Don't worry. That's all right.
You are but I've watched you talk to other people about it.
I hope I'm not coming off as a hater, Vanita, because I really am not.
No.
But I won't deny that I am disappointed in the new stuff.
I like hearing you talk about anything.
Thanks, buddy. You see? My God, this is why I miss her.
Yeah. I have not sat down and watched the new Harley show, but what do you think? So
I love it.
What do you think? Because I like.
I love it. I think it's great. I think it's at the same time fresh and exciting, but it's also absolutely for any DC nerd. The Easter eggs they put in, the jokes they put in are fantastic. It is hardcore. It is a hard R. And you're a lady, so I won't go into detail on how it's hardcore. But I talked to the co-creator, Pat Schumacher, and we're doing episode reviews. And I started with season 1 just because now it's on Sci-Fi Channel. And, not everyone has the DC streaming service. So, I feel like a lot of people are seeing it for the first time. And it's a great show. It's amazing. So,
awesome.
Yeah. Kelly Jones is joining us, everybody.
I like to move toward more, DC characters. There are DC characters who work better not for kids. So I have absolutely no problem with that.
If you like Rick and Morty, I think you'll like Harley Quinn. I think it's very, very funny and it's good adult humor. Kelly Jones, the Swamp Thing I did with Len Wein was reprinted as a giant size, did great in Walmart. I hope they expand there. Oh, that's awesome. I'm glad that man, what a classic run. So, or that was, excuse me, that was a newer story that you and Len did, Kel, but that's fantastic to hear. And, yeah, I mean, everyone I talked to, I mean, God, I'll tell you, I loved Tom's Superman story that he was doing with Andy Kubert or Adam. I forget which Kubert it was offhand. And
Well,
Brian and Nick Darrington, the Batman story was terrific.
yeah. I think for years we've been saying, why aren't we in the well, not just Walmart, but back in the day, the spinner racks. Why aren't we at the grocery store or the Walmart type stores? Why aren't we at Target? Why aren't we? Because that does make sense. And I'm sure there's some comics that do better in that situation, and those should be there. I mean, try a lot of different things.
Agreed. What do you think? And man, it's been a while since we've talked, so I'm going to catch up and ask you some movie and TV talk. Did you watch the CW crossover, the Crisis crossover?
I did, and I liked it. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a ton of fun.
Me too.
They had a lot of fun with it, and yeah, it was good.
It was thrilling. The year before it aired, Mark Guggenheim and I were at Terrificon, and we had a really long ride to the airport. And he was telling me, he's like, man, because at the time they did the Earth X crossover, which I thought was fun as well the previous year. And he's like,
had a blast.
And it was great because he's like the CW execs. He's like, they finally get it. They finally see the value in these things, and they're letting us go nuts. And he goes, he's like, I can't give you details, but you're going to be blown away with the callbacks we're going to be doing to DC history. And yeah, it was fantastic. He's like, and he did say, he goes, we're really doing Crisis. I'm like, so then there's going to be more than one Superman. He's like, oh yeah. And just stuff like that. And it was like, oh, this is going to be great.
Then it ended up being so cool. I think that audiences, I mean, you and I remember like 20 years ago, maybe, when most audiences didn't quite understand shared universes very well. And I think audiences now completely understand that stuff. I mean, they want that stuff. They want, Supergirl. They wanted Supergirl on CBS to have on Flash. They wanted that. They loved it, So I think that, I know Supergirl's not on CBS, but even when she, they wanted those, even on channels to come together. And I think they understand that. They've been educated in various, different other universes that Marvel movies have completely educated them, that now they want the X-Men there too. They want that. Everybody wants, they totally understand. We as comic book readers, we understood it way before anybody else. But I think even mainstream audiences understand it, and the CW shows reach more than just comic book readers. And I think people really understand it. So yeah, it's a blast when they do that stuff. And I have a son-in-law now. And he never read, was not raised around comic books or anything, but now his big thing is, and I'll overhear him talking to people, he still doesn't read comic books, but he loves to talk about the different movies and TV shows and whether they are loyal to the comic books. He talks about it all the time. Oh, well, in the comic books, Andrea was actually a different character in the Walking Dead comic book,
That's great that he knows. That's amazing.
People completely are educated on that stuff. They're educated on shared universes. They want crossovers. I think it's fantastic what the CW has done overall with all those characters, kind of crossing into each other's TV shows. And you understand, even the ones that aren't maybe in the exact same time period or the same universe at a certain time, that they can cross over. It's a lot of fun.
100%. Absolutely. And, even going back to 20 years ago, when Buffy and Angel were on. And at first they were on the same network, but they kept the crossovers even after one went to UPN and the other stayed at the WB. So I agree with you. I think finally, and also the great, man, I'll tell you, when I was working at a radio station and had water cooler moments about Gotham and the Flash and all the CW shows when they were brand new. And it was so great when, one of the coworkers would come up and go, all right, explain this whole reverse Flash thing to me. And I'm like, I'd be happy to. Yeah. This is Professor Zoom.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's fun, and no, I think it's great to see that the education of the audience has evolved, and that's why, isn't it great now that the shows are so good. Do you have DC Universe online, the streaming thing?
I had it for a while. I don't have it right now.
Well, no problem. Are you going to get HBO Max? Are you going to get the new thing?
I think we are, yeah.
Because I noticed Doom Patrol second season is going to be there.
Right.
And it's interesting. It's funny too, because as we're speaking this week, it sounds like CBS All Access is going to morph into much more of a joint venture with Paramount's library, and now that Viacom is one company again. And I am interested to see what the future is for DC Universe. I hope they have a wing at HBO Max, because I like a lot of the original programming that they're doing. The stuff that Sam Humphries and the other hosts are doing with their daily show, I think is a good thing. And also, I just think that the live product and the animation product, they've only gotten better. And I really think that, looking at, because Stargirl was originally going to be only, I think, DC Universe. And it's great that it is going to be on CW, because I think it's worthy of it. Good Lord, the Doom Patrol and Swamp Thing were so great. And I think Titans was had a little rougher start, but I think the second season it found its groove. So yeah, I think there's a lot of really good product, and I'm glad to see that, because I mean, Marvel was really getting the lion's share of the credit, certainly in the movies and stuff. And meanwhile, DC, I would say, from TV and animation, obviously has bested Marvel in those areas.
No, I agree with that. I mean, there have been bright spots for Marvel. I love their stuff on Netflix. Most of those were good, some better than others, but good.
Yeah.
And, but no, I wonder, do you think that just overall they're starting to get it? I mean, because the TV shows are better and better. Or I think it helps too. I don't know if it helps more on a streaming service, as far, like, I feel like the ones that were on regular television where they had to kind of do the freak of the week or the to draw it out, like those don't work when you have an ongoing storyline where you're trying to solve the mystery and you make people wait 13 episodes, and it doesn't work as well. I know the first couple seasons of Arrow, I got so frustrated because it just like move already, and
Yes.
I think they're finally catching on that you got to have some really cool, exciting stuff going on and keep people interested. And I think that superheroes lends itself to that,
Well, and the connectivity makes it easier, I think, to go from 13 weeks of Flash, then 13 weeks of Legends of Tomorrow, and then 13 weeks of Black Lightning. And if it is the same universe, I think there's an allowance for that. Now, Eric Williams asked an interesting question. Any thoughts on how you think the DC Universe service will evolve, adapt now that shows like Stargirl and Doom Patrol are going to be shared with CW, HBO Max, along with the new Green Lantern show going to HBO Max? That's the big question, Eric. I don't know. I mean, there are things.
I don't know how the DC how the streaming service is doing on its own, and I can't help thinking that a lot of that is because they're not getting the eyes on those shows that deserve more eyes. And I mean, that's the reason that they're like, well, let's put it here and here as well. These are too good to be seen by just this audience. I don't want to say that they don't have a huge audience, but I get the sense that the audience isn't big enough maybe for the money that they're spending and the time that they're putting into this and the product that they think is good enough to get out there to more eyes. So I think that's probably why they're like, this is too good to just have this smaller audience. Not that it's teeny audience, but you know what I mean? Like this,
absolutely,
in front of more people, this is good enough to be seen by a more general audience.
Well, and even Apple TV is struggling. And I mean, it's Apple, so they can take the hit. What's that?
There's so many services.
Well, exactly. I mean, that's the thing. There's an oversaturation of streaming services. So I think that's why people are leapfrogging, watching one show and then dropping the subscription, going to something else.
Yeah, that's what we are just doing. We just eliminated one and added another, and
Yeah. No, I hear you. And exactly. And I mean, it'll be interesting if, Sling, I always find to be like kind of false advertising. And they're like, oh, it's a la carte TV. It's like, no, it's not. You've given us two different tiers. It's a lower grade of cable, really, when you come down to it. I think Sling, no offense, Sling. If you want us to advertise on Word Balloon, I'm happy to tell everyone how great Sling is. And it's the best thing ever that ever happened to streaming television. But, no, there is. And I expected some aggregators to pop up and bundle some of these streaming things together. I mean, obviously it's happening within the company, like Disney Plus is doing with Hulu and ESPN and stuff like that. So I don't know. It's gonna be.
I think Disney Plus didn't know if they were going to be big enough to justify, and I think that they moved the way that they had to move to try and get it, as many people to get it as possible. Like, I think it was free with Verizon or something like that, or you got it. Or I don't remember all the different deals that were out there, but boy, they certainly have the eyes now, I think, or I get that sense talking to people. And I will talk Mandalorian because I love that.
Well, I was gonna and by all means we can get into Mandalorian, but first, as a hardcore DC. No, wait a minute, because I know who I'm talking to. You're a massive Disney fan, and what do you think of Disney Plus?
Oh, I love Disney Plus. I was just watching today. Shoot, I can't think of the name of it. It's
Go deep, Vaneta. Come on.
It's about bringing back Sleeping Beauty. It's about
I don't know.
It's about the 1980s and Disney animation and how how horrible the company really was, but they had all these brilliant young minds. It was really that overlap time period where the old men,
the 9 old men, yeah,
and the young guys, the Tim Burtons and John Lasseter, and just these. Like now you're like, wow, those are the greats. They were overlapping, and it was difficult to see where the direction. I haven't finished it yet.
But it's a documentary about this.
I do know the ending. We know what happened,
Well, sure. But that's I'm assuming that's a documentary.
I've watched it up and down. I even enjoy the National Geographic stuff, but yeah, I love Disney Plus. I think
I've been like looking for really old stuff, and there's that one. I don't think it's a Merlin Jones movie, but there's that one movie that opens with Annette Funicello and the Beach Boys singing together, and it blows my mind. And it is so cool that like the most unlikely now looking back, but again they were pop bands,
I watched Spin and Marty. I watched a few episodes.
Nice.
3 Caballeros. I mean, how bad is that? So
but that's what they need to do. And to be honest, that's why I'm curious to see how CBS and Paramount shake out. And I still have cable because I kept it for sports, idiot. Now that sports are so active these days. But they throw in Peacock if you have Xfinity, Comcast still. So I was able to kind of sample Peacock. And it's okay, but it's nowhere near, what I'd hoped for. And that's why I think some of these libraries, it's like, you got a ton of stuff. And of course, the Disney Plus, not only getting great Disney stuff, but also Fox. And it's like, all that. I mean, beyond The Simpsons, let's see them pull the trigger on the Fox library and so many great classic things and stuff. Right. So hey, look who joined us, Matt Brady, saying Waking Sleeping Beauty, amazing documentary.
Waking, that's it. I couldn't remember the name of it. I started watching it. I came home for lunch from work, and I watched like the first 10, 15 minutes, Matt. Hi, Matt. So yeah, Waking Sleeping Beauty. It's good. And I mean, I have just tons of stuff on there that's about the old crew and the
it's fascinating.
Imagineering story. Did you watch? Oh, so good.
No, but I mean, again, I know I gotta get through it. I mean, no, I really, I want to watch it. I also on Netflix, I really want to watch this Hollywood miniseries that they started. Anything old Hollywood, they have me at hello.
Well, my daughter, like I said, my college age daughter is home. She's currently watching the Mary Tyler Moore Show. How fun is that?
That's excellent.
20-year-old, because she watched the entire Dick Van Dyke Show.
Wow, that's great.
She loves Mary Tyler Moore. So when that became available, I think it's on Netflix. I don't know. I think she's watching on Hulu. I think it's on Hulu.
Okay.
She's watching Mary Tyler Moore Show, and it's just so fun to watch it, and I can't wait because she's only, I think, on the first or second season, and my husband and I are looking at each other like, when does Betty White show up? And
yes,
there's different characters that come in, she's going to flip out, because I mean, that generation knows who Betty White is, but they don't know, that where she used to be. So it's really fun to see the young, someone younger watching shows that I grew up on. And it's fun for me to see the making of stuff, bringing it back to Disney Plus, seeing the making of stuff that I grew up on. It's really, Disney's done a good job with that. They have a lot of cool stuff on there. I really love Daniel not Daniel Boone, Davy Crockett. I watched that stupid old movie, but I just laughed at it. It enjoyed it, and you know what they did with it. Historically, not quite accurate, but partially accurate.
Well, and Zorro. Good Lord, Zorro is a great show.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic 50s black and white superhero show. I mean, really, Guy Williams was so perfectly cast. And I remember when Disney Channel first started and they were showing Zorro and stuff. And I'd always heard about it. And it was so great to finally see it. And it lived up to the hype. I thought it was excellent.
Yeah.
So there you go, man. Well, I thought they do already have the Zorro show, Eric.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't seen it on there. Did they not have it?
Oh, I don't know, man. Boy, they better get it up there, and that, and also
they got a whole stuff for later, or else.
And I told Johns, I'm like, "Where's Condor Man?" And he's like, "Condor Man, of course, my God." That was a fun cheeseball movie of the '70s. And I was going to say too, Dr. Sin, the Scarecrow movie that Patrick McGowan made.
Yeah,
and that's a really good kind of vigilante hero.
Well, and Disney has all those old Touchstone movies, and they have all the. I mean, there's a lot of their really old movies that aren't on there yet. I don't think all their Kurt Russell stuff's on there.
I think you're right. Yeah, oh God, all the Dexter Jones stuff. Yeah, I know one or two of them are. I think Barefoot Executive is there.
Maybe it is, but
not all of them. No, you're right about that.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, and Tommy Jones. Tommy Kirk. Tommy Kirk.
Yeah.
So. No, I agree, man. That's cool stuff. All right, Mandalorian. Beyond the obvious, I really like this stagecraft technology they used to create a lot of the backgrounds and stuff.
Oh yeah. Well, it is. We were talking about how superheroes, you got to keep things happening. I feel like with Mandalorian, with Star Wars, like they didn't have to. Like they just had quality acting, quality. Don't get me wrong, things were happening, but you know what I mean? Like they could take their time with some of the landscapes and some of it. It felt like a very smart drama. Not every episode, mind you, but smart enough that I think as a somewhat fan, I'm not a hardcore fan of Star Wars, but I'm enough of a fan. I've seen all the movies. I haven't seen every animated series and everything, but I just thought, wow, this is exactly the kind of TV show that I'd like to watch anyway, let alone that if I was, that I am a fan of that universe. So yeah, I just thought it was really well done.
That's good to know. Franco says they just started the Mandalorian documentary series.
I saw that up there today. And I didn't have a chance to watch it though.
There you go. First episode about the directors. Very cool. So, see, buddy, I got my glasses. That's all right. I'd be totally leaning in if I didn't, do this either. Isn't this great that people can chime in while we're talking? I think it's fantastic. StreamYard, everybody.
I haven't talked to Art and Franco in a while. They doing well?
They are doing great, and truly, I told them that I'm talking to you. They're like, "Oh, please say hello." I'm like, "Of course I will." So, no, they miss you absolutely, man. It's a very interesting time for them. They're really. I'm proud of both of them. A lot of publishers are finally getting hip to what they can do, both of them individually and together. So it's been fun watching their careers evolve. And reminder for everybody watching that Art and Franco are on with me almost weekly, certainly during the shut-in for the Aw Yeah podcast, which reflects Aw Yeah Comics, but really is just a chance for us to hang out and have a bunch of nerd pop culture conversations and stuff. And if you like the humor that they bring in the comics, I think you'll enjoy the conversation. So check that out as well, all of you that are new to Word Balloon and just experiencing this for the first time. So always good to hear from Franco. Thank you, buddy. But
you're the straight man on those.
I am the straight. I am totally the straight man on those. And in fact, I am the victim on those.
The straight man.
It's true. No, it's very true. Angry Yoko.
You got to bring in the monkeys.
I got to be the traffic cop. I know. Well, that's why. Or sometimes all five of them will be on. It's like, hello, hello, hello. And then they don't talk. And I'm like, all right, dead air. That's great, guys. Nobody has anything to say. Let's go. Come on. Talk. It's audio, man. But no, they're good. They're good guys. They're doing a lot of video. They're drawing online and everything. So, as far as taking advantage of the time right now.
Yeah.
No, it's cool. I don't know what other, any other interesting points of view that you're finding when you're talking to creators and stuff about, again, innovation and what they're trying to do in this current situation to get their product out there?
Well, you mentioned artists drawing online, and I think a lot of, without the comic book convention circuit, I think that a lot of the commissions and things will be done online. And I have talked to people who said, they think they're going to start doing things live for people. I think the events that they're doing for the Hero Initiative right now, I talked to one creator who said he really liked that format, and he's thinking maybe he'll do it for other things too, that these guys, you have fans out there. It makes sense to communicate with them. If you can't do it at conventions, then it makes sense to do it that way. And I mean, some of them have already their own vlogs or their email newsletter, like Tynan and stuff has his newsletter, and Charles Soule and everybody. But I think now we're getting more used to what you and I are doing right now. Just unusual. I'm so used to your voice, but I think people are going to take advantage of this kind of thing more.
God, there's a ton of really beyond each artist, drawing and stuff like that. Dave Johnson and Dan Panosian are doing their drink and draw online, and they always have like 4 or 5 great artists, and then a great guest artist. I know Walt Simonson and Bill Sienkiewicz recently, have been on, and Quesada is a regular on there, and that was terrific. When I don't know if you saw that video on theirs where it was their drink and draw, and they had Quesada and DiDio kind of talking at the same time and kind of sharing war stories of their primes and everything. Pretty cool.
Got some stories.
Well, and again, it was great to see, and it's something that you and I know talking to these people, but the fans are so involved and invested in the horse race. I'm a DC fan. I'm a Marvel fan. And whereas everybody works in the business, it's like, yeah, they're the competitor, but really they're all doing, as I always quote Hickman, books are on the shelf for comic books are on the same shelf, but sometimes for different reasons. And I think you can even find that within DC and Marvel as far as their philosophies and why certain books exist and how their philosophies of publishing.
Yeah, I mean, I think when it is a competition between the companies, but in the community, it's not, because so many of the guys go back and forth and see each other at comic book conventions and everything, that it's not at all. The community is the community together. You know what I mean? Is that where you were going?
No, and that they respect each other. It's not as blood, thirsty and everything. Yeah. And also a lot of times one ends up working across the street, as we saw with Bendis recently. And it happens with a ton of artists and writers all the time. So Now Matt makes a good point. Matt Brady's back, and he says it's not a horse race without talking about Bill Jemas. And I want to pivot and talk about Bill Jemas and AWA, his new publishing concern, and Axel Alonso working over there. Straczynski is over there, and Mike Morisi is over there. And I mean, they've got some really good writers and artists making new comics. And I don't know if you've had a chance to talk to anybody from AWA or sample any of their new line of books. I
have not. Have you?
Yeah, I've looked at their books, and I talked to Straczynski last year. I really want to get at the very least Axel on. I don't know if I want to talk to Bill Jemas. What Bill is doing double shot, I'll be honest, I'll be candid. I was a little disappointed whoever was handling their press, because it was like, well, he'll only answer certain questions about X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, well, then I'm not really interested in talking to him. Good luck, though. And again, no hard feelings. It's fine. But, it's like, look, I'm nobody. I want to have an unfettered conversation. And and I mean, that's just been a battle that I've had with certain public relations people at certain times. Not everybody. And I'm really happy to say that right now the big two are a pleasure to work with, truly. And they understand what I do and are cool with, and know that I'm not a cheap shot guy or a gotcha guy in any way. And that I just want an interesting conversation.
Yeah, we'll have to talk off the video about Bill Jemas's PR person.
Uh-oh. And again, I wish nothing but much like Dan. What's that?
I'll just leave it at that.
That's fair. No, I get it. And then I'll pivot and say I am rooting for Axel Alonso. I understood why that his time was up in Marvel. Nobody's job is forever. That's exactly what Joe was saying too, and Dan agreed. Dan was saying, hell, he expected to be out of there 10 years earlier at various times, and so he was surprised that he was there as long as he was. But yeah, it's just again, I want to, as far as I wish no ill to these guys, and I think, like I said, Axel, I think is a very smart guy and a good tastemaker, and I trust his editorial opinion, and I've liked a lot of the comics that I've read at AWA. So at the very least, I know I'd have a good. I know Axel's been on before, so I know I think we'd be okay to talk.
Oh yeah, and I think that the brains in comic book business, I think I just think they can take that anywhere and find success if it's something creative, particularly somebody like Axel.
Yeah.
So yeah.
No, I agree. Buddy, we can wrap up if you want. I think we've had a lovely chat. Anything you want to recommend as far as like you said you're watching. You said you're watching The Office again, or Parks and Rec, or I forget what you said you were rewatching.
I just started watching The Office again. Really.
So any new stuff that you've seen that I hear what you're saying about procedurals and how dark, especially some of the shows you're rattling off like Broadchurch and stuff. They're great shows, but yeah, it was again the only thing I can compare it to is 9/11, where I'm like, I just need light stuff for a while. I really just need light entertainment, and that's why I've been dipping into documentaries and really enjoying those. And I don't know if I mentioned it to you because I was talking to friends on a Zoom call before we got on and telling them the Natalie Wood HBO documentary is really, really interesting. Yeah, it's great. And any old Hollywood stuff like that. You know what else I saw? And it's from 2013, but I had never seen it, and it was on HBO, was the J.D. Salinger documentary. That was incredible.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. So interesting. And, anything
about it, but I hadn't heard much about it. I mean,
anything of those periods when when books really mattered, and that from the post-war era through the 80s, I think I'm fascinated by it. I also watched on Amazon Prime a really interesting one about the art director of Playboy, who was there from the beginning and got such high-end artists to do illustrations for the magazine. And the classic line, well, I only buy Playboy for the articles and stuff. But the reality is it really was a quality magazine, along with the naked women.
Oh, yeah, I hear you. I believe that's why you read it. No.
See, thanks, buddy. There you go. You got my back. You always have my back. Jesus.
No, but I started watching the series. I just started watching a series, and I've been through two. I go back and forth through things, but as a series on, I think it was on the History Channel, but it's on Amazon Prime now. It's called Alone, and it's really interesting how these survival experts at the beginning of the season, they take like 10 different people, and at the beginning of the season, you're convinced that the three guys who are women, there's women in the second season, you're convinced that the three guys that have the best survival skills are going to win, but it doesn't end up that way. The people who can be alone for that long are the ones that have the mind for it. And I started watching that. I think I watched it right before all of this lockdown started going down. And now I've watched it off and on through all of this. And I think it's really telling about what we're going through right now. So yeah, you said, is there anything I would recommend? I would recommend like the first season of Alone on Prime, just because it's the mental, like mentally what we're being confronted with, spending so much time isolated from other people. And I think that we can learn from people who have to go through that on this show. It was a little educational about the psychology of, interacting with other people.
Totally.
And not taking people for granted. I mean, all of them at the end of it, they're like, man, I will never take other people for granted again.
I hear you. Now, John A. Johnson has a great recommendation. Greg Daniels, showrunner of The Office, 2 new shows, Upload, Space Force. Space Force coming on Netflix. I've watched the first 2 episodes of Upload. It's great.
Okay.
And I don't know if you know the concept. It's a guy dies in an accident, and this is about 20 years in the future, 10 years in the future, where the dead can be uploaded into a virtual reality that essentially is a heaven of sorts, that they can their consciousness can continue. And
Right.
it's a very interesting idea, and it's a very funny show. Upload. So I
Do that on-
recommend that.
Didn't they do that on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. for like a
Yes,
couple?
they did. Absolutely. Yeah, that's how Coulson exactly survived. And then now that's on Amazon Prime. And Steve Small points out The Green Girl about Susan Oliver, who, and that's on Tubi, because it was on Amazon Prime. By the way, Tubi in general, man, you got to dig. But if you've got the patience, there are a lot of great movies and TV shows on Tubi that are not obvious choices. And they're like, I mean, Gabe Harbin and I were talking about, and Karina Becco, about so many Werner Herzog movies, like foreign Warren Herzog movies with subtitles, are on Tubi. So it's a great thing. The Green Girl, yes, Susan Oliver is in that pilot for Star Trek with Jeffrey Hunter, and she's the original Orion dancer in that, and also plays Vina, one of the survivors that they encounter on the Forbidden Planet and everything. But she had an incredible career. Not only acting, but also tried really hard to break into the Directors Guild, and it's a great story. She really was a Renaissance woman, and very, very gifted in a lot of different ways. So I absolutely agree that Green Girl on Tubi is absolutely a must-watch for anybody. So I would agree with that. And okay, there we go. Catastrophe is Prime's best show, says A. Johnson.
Okay,
I'll believe it. All right, I'll check it out.
What's Catastrophe about, John?
I have no idea. I do not know. You could.
What's Catastrophe?
Yeah, you could write it. You could write us and tell us right now if you could put it in a little capsule there, A. Johnson, and we'll be happy to talk about it. But no, I again, Upload. I can't recommend enough. It's really, really funny, and I'm surprised because comedy sometimes works best, obviously, in a half hour, and these are 45-minute episodes, and they still work because the world building they do is really interesting. And it's very funny, and I like their assumptions of where society is going, self-driven cars and Ubers and a lot of things that we take for granted now, the new technology and where it might lead 10 or 20 years from now. So that's a lot of fun. So there you go. I don't know, A. Johnson. I don't see a description from you, so I will let Vanita go, and I guess we'll have to look up on our own on Amazon Prime.
Right before the lockdown, my husband and I finally sat down and watched Lock and Key. It was funny too because he said there's a show on Netflix I'm hearing about called Lock and Key. I said, oh well, I read the comics; they were awesome, and they're it's good. I liked it. I like Lock and Key.
Here we go. So here's One Night Stand gets pregnant, gets married. It's fantastic. That's Catastrophe for you.
That's everything you need for a good show, isn't
it? Did you like The Boys?
The Boys, my husband loved.
See, he's a good man. There you go.
I think it might have been aimed a little. No, very good show. Great actors.
Yes.
There, so yeah.
How about Umbrella Academy?
Oh, I loved Umbrella Academy. I really like that. But again, I like the comic better. It's hard. Sure. I fell in love with the comic first, and same with Lock and Key. And then I watched the show, and I'm like, well, it's good, but it's not as good as the comic.
I hear you. And The Boys, I think,
really well done. They were both really well done.
And The Boys, I think, is different enough, and I like the directions The Boys went into because it was as much a parody of the hype machine behind the Marvel Cinematic Universe as it is just the normal superhero tropes. And I really like Elizabeth Shue's character was just fantastic, and just that idea that marketing was as important as saving people or whatever.
Right. It was different enough from the comic book that I didn't compare it a lot to the comic book. They really kind of went in their own direction. It was a lot of fun.
And I love, man, I'll tell you, I got to talk at length with Mark Miller at the end of the year in December, and what's coming from Netflix from him. And I know he's really excited about Jupiter's Legacy and American Jesus in particular. And I think those are the first two that we'll get out of the pipeline. And then also our buddies like Greg Rucka has got his adaptation of The Old Guard.
Breaking up a little.
Oh, okay. Did you have a chance? I mean, I don't know. Have you had a chance to talk to Rucka yet about The Old Guard? His Oni thing. Can you hear me now or no?
Right. No, I can't hear you very well.
All right. Well, then something. V. We'll wrap up then, and I'll.
Oh, it went real fast.
Oh, okay. How about The Old Guard? The Oni Greg Rucka thing.
Yeah. No, I haven't.
Okay. All right, we can wrap up then. I'm gonna resort to.
What
I don't know, man. I guess we're having our issues.
happened online now? I don't know.
Exactly. All right, let's wrap up then, buddy. It's great to see you. I'm sorry it's under these circumstances. Let's talk again soon. And as always, whenever you've got you eventually have to write a book or something, V, because of your years and the people you've talked to. And I mean, just like me, I mean, I think that between the two of us, we got a couple of books that either of us can put out as far as our experiences covering this stuff.
Let's co-write.
Ha! No, I want us to maintain our friendship. I don't want us to, you didn't get it done. And I'm saying me, buddy. I'll be the victim. I'll be the bad guy. No. So, but tremendous to see you, buddy. And seriously, the best to you and your family. I hope you all weather this as best as any of us can. And let's talk again soon. But thanks for doing this tonight.
Thanks. It was great talking to you. I'm hearing part of what you're saying, but I think you're saying goodbye, and it was fantastic. And thanks everyone for listening to us ramble on about things.
Absolutely. No, thank you very much, Vanita. I'm going to put you on standby if you can hear me, and maybe we'll be able to talk. And if not, I'll text you. But in the meantime, I'll thank everybody for coming on and asking great questions. And truly, as always, a pleasure talking to you tonight. More great stuff from Word Balloon coming this weekend. No more streams this week. Got a lot planned for next week, though, starting with Mike Oming on Monday night. Now, he's got a new Kickstarter that he's going to be doing and a few other things as well. So thanks a lot for watching tonight. And go to wordballoon.com and check out the archive of other great interviews that are happening right here on Word Balloon. Thanks, everybody.